gonna be. No matter what comes our way, we'll be together.
Welcome to Homeschooling Down South. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kat. We're two Southern homeschooling mamas sharing real talk, resources, and inspiration for life and learning in the Southeast.
Each week, we'll chat with inspiring voices in the homeschool community, highlight must-see nature spots and field trip gems, and share resources from across the region.
Whether you're new to homeschooling or a seasoned pro, pull up a chair and join us as we celebrate the joy, freedom, and community of homeschooling down south.
We'll laugh together, we'll learn together, find the joys in life together, give each other grace and space to be.
Welcome back. It's our first nature episode of 2026, and this one is Mammoth. I did it. I couldn't help myself.
You're so punny. Well, this one I feel like has been a long time coming because this episode we talked about recording this episode when we first started recording for the podcast months before the first episode was ever released.
Yes.
I mean, this episode was one of the OGs that we talked about, and we're just now getting around to recording it.
Which says a lot about how many cool nature things there are to experience, that I experienced this nature outing, goodness, in the fall of 2024. And we're finally bringing it around and letting y'all hear about it in early 2026. But I don't think much has changed. So I don't think much has changed in this space. Or things change, but they change very slowly.
Sure.
So I think you could have a very similar experience to what we had.
And I'm going in completely blind because I know nothing about this place. I'm not a cave person. I get I don't even know that it's claustrophobia. It's more like, where is the nearest exit? And if disaster were to strike, can I get out quick? Which maybe that is claustrophobia. I don't know. But I've never been a cave person. So I'm very excited to hear about your experience.
And I am a cave person, which maybe sounds weird, but I do like caves, and maybe we'll get into a little bit of how I came to like caves. But if you haven't figured it out yet, today we will be talking about my family's trip to Mammoth Cave National Park. It is in Kentucky. We were just kind of trying to decide, is it in central Kentucky, sort of maybe a little bit towards the southeast in Kentucky, but like almost pretty much central. It's not super close to any major cities. The closest city would be Bowling Green, but it's off of I-5 in Edmonson County, Kentucky. And here's what I'll tell you. We went for my husband and I's 10th wedding anniversary to Kentucky. We brought our son with us. We bring him with us on events like that. I feel like that might be it's just part of our family culture. And I always wonder if it's having an only child, that like he just comes with us on, even when it's a celebration for my husband and I, he comes with us. And so a few weeks before we went, I saw a post on social media about Mammoth Cave being the most boring national park in the country. And I was like,
naturally, you said bet. Well, that is very on brand for you.
Well, I had already committed us. We were already going. But I was like, well, I hope I didn't make a huge mistake, but let's do this. Let's make this amazing. And we had the greatest time. I don't know why people find it so boring, but I found it to be absolutely lovely. So we can get into the details, but I just thought it was funny that expectation tried to get set for me that we were going to have a boring time. And guess what?
Yeah.
We did not. We had just a wonderful time.
I love it. Tell me how you found it, because you just said it's not close to any major city. So how did you land there? And prior to hearing about it being the most boring park, what was your plan? Like, what had you planned to do? Were you there for educational programming or no? And then share like what the experience was actually like.
So this will give you all a peek into what it's like to be my husband. My sweet husband who puts up with so much. It really wasn't near anything that we were going to do. We had decided that we were going to go to Paducah, Kentucky for our 10th wedding anniversary. Why we chose Paducah is not that exciting. There was a restaurant there that I really wanted to go eat at for our 10th anniversary dinner, and I decided I would figure out how to craft a whole fun vacation around this one particular meal.
I love it.
And as I started looking, I found some cool things near Paducah, which I'm not going to talk about right now because I want to save them for another episode. But I anytime I'm going anywhere, I take a minute to look up what national parks are nearby, what state parks are nearby. I want to go have that kind of experience. And in particular, at the time I was really focused on national parks, and I realized, "Oh yeah, there's a national park in Kentucky." And I started looking and I said, "Oh, it's not that far from Paducah. It's only 2.5 hours."
Oh my gosh.
I wish everyone could have seen Kayla's eyes.
Oh
They looked like my
my
husband's when I pitched
gosh.
this.
Catherine.
I know. I know. That's not that far. If I'm 2.5 hours away from a national park, I'm going, by golly.
We live two very different lives.
So we went up to Paducah on a Thursday. We spent Friday closer around Paducah, and Friday was our actual anniversary and doing dinner. And then we woke up bright and early Saturday morning and drove the 2.5 hours east to Edmonson County to Mammoth Cave National Park. We spent the day there, and then we came home, or not came home, back to our Airbnb that evening, and then we drove home on Sunday. We had another little experience. Again, I would love to do another episode that's going to share the things that were closer to Paducah. But we went back to that place on Sunday morning and then drove the rest of the way home. It was a jam-packed trip. And I will tell you what makes a day like that successful for my family is when we stay at an Airbnb and we're going to go adventuring a lot and go to be out of the Airbnb and kind of away from towns and cities at a place like a national park. We bring our breakfast pre-made. So we bring waffles and bacon already cooked. We bring our eggs. Breakfast is at the Airbnb. So we get up and we have breakfast basically the same way we would at home. It doesn't really feel any different. And we're not wasting that time trying to get seated at a restaurant and ordering and all of that. The other thing we do for a day like this is we bring a cooler and we pack our sandwiches and we bring a bag of chips. And then that way we're not spending any of our mental energy, but also any of our time on trying to figure out where to eat in a place that we don't know, especially because we do have some dietary restrictions in our family. It's just easier to not spend that energy that way. And then
Yeah.
also, wherever you're going, if it's a national park or a state park or something like that, then you just sit down and eat when you're ready and you don't have to worry about coordinating anything. So
Right.
that's how we made that day successful with the 2.5 hour drive there and back.
I love that. That's smart.
So I did planning on the front end, and you can reserve tours. And that's what I did because my son was 4 at the time. We had a kid in the mix, and I just knew we can't be getting there and trying to wing it.
Yep.
So I looked at all the tours, I read through all of them, and there are so many that look great and many that I would like to do. But I just knew for our first cave excursion as a family that what would be best would be the Frozen Niagara tour. And I'm just going to read their description about it because I think that is better than me trying to explain it. The naturally decorated Frozen Niagara section remains one of the most famous at Mammoth Cave and serves as the last stop for a variety of cave tours. While many tours require long hikes and numerous stairs to reach this point, this short tour offers a chance to visit this area. This tour is ideal for anyone with difficulty walking long distances or negotiating stairs. And in another description I had read or a review, it said really ideal for small children. So
I love
you meet
that.
at the visitor center and you hop on a bus and they drive you to what is the entrance for this tour, but it's the exit for many of the other tours. And all in all, your total time with them is about an hour and a half from when they meet you at the visitor center and they do a short little talk there. And then you get on the bus and ride. The ride there was probably 10 or 15 minutes. It was not,
Oh,
yeah, it was not like a 5-minute ride.
okay.
And then there was a little bit of a discussion outside the cave. Most of those discussions were about how to treat the cave and safety and things like that. And then we went in. We had a really great ranger. He was very knowledgeable, and you could tell loves what he does, and he was really excited to share all this cool cave stuff with us. So then you're in the cave probably for about half an hour, I would say. Maybe a hair longer, but not too long. And it's a bigger space. So it's not super enclosed. There's not going to be any like crawling on your belly in this cave or like turning sideways to shimmy, none of that. It's all on walkways
Okay.
with like handrails on your
Okay.
sides. And it's all lit the whole time until at the very end, they turn off the lights so you
Sure. To
can
show
see
you
how
like
dark.
complete darkness. Yeah.
Yep. But the rest of the time, it's all lit so that you can see these really cool cave formations and you can see the cave crickets and
Can we pause
Kayla's
on that
face.
for just a second?
Kayla's
What
face
is a
said no
cave
thank you.
cricket?
So it's a type of cricket that looks very different than what we think of as a cricket because it lives in the cave. So its needs are different than other crickets. It's bigger. It like has kind of like a wider gait, wider stance. That's what I mean. A wider stance. Kayla's face is saying she's not
And
interested.
no, I'm really not. But like they point them out to you, like when you get to see. Tell me more about. You get to see the cave crickets. Like, what is
Well,
it about?
so I think there were several kids on ours, and the kids are like, "What's that?" So, but also, I feel like if you're going to be in a cave and there's going to be a bug, I would rather have someone tell me
I
what it
mean,
is and
true.
tell me about it. Like, does it bite? What does it want to get on my body? It actually wants nothing to do with you. But so they're
Okay.
scurrying around. Like
Okay.
the lights are on. So I guess my point in that is you can see everything that's happening in the cave. You can see the critters that are in there. So you're not like, oh, is there something on me? Is there something by me? No.
Okay.
And this cave was not one that has bats. I think probably because it has so much foot traffic.
Sure.
We actually did see a bat outside, like nesting in the pavilion that you walk under to get into the cave. So that was like our only bat encounter on this, which my son and I were both bummed out about because we like bats.
So it's called the Frozen Niagara, which
Yes.
is that because there's actual frozen water or because the like cave formations look like frozen waterfalls?
I think it's the latter, that the
Okay.
formations look like flowing water.
That's
There's
cool.
there's water trickling in the cave in a couple spots. There's just some really beautiful formations. We'll post some pictures on social media from our time there, but I'll be honest, like the picture quality isn't super great from inside the cave.
Sure.
It just doesn't capture for you how cool it all is. And I'm obsessed with caves and cave formation. I just think it's fascinating that something so beautiful can be made underground. Like it
Yeah.
just goes into the we've talked about this before, but just it's one of those things that fosters more wonder in me to a creator who had this attention to detail and this eye for making so many places for us to explore and be in awe of. And I think it's cool because I I think it would be hard to find someone who doesn't think some part of nature is awe-inspiring. Maybe not maybe the
Yeah.
caves aren't your thing, but there's some ones, right? And that is
Yeah.
like an entrance point into standing in awe.
Yeah.
And I think caves are one of the coolest things.
Yeah. So you go in, you do the tour, then what happens?
So for us, that was actually the end of our day. We got there a little bit early. We had our picnic lunch, and what I wasn't anticipating, and I don't know why, because it's a national park. Maybe because that person had put it in my head that it was a boring national park, but I hadn't anticipated finding the entire space beautiful above ground too. And it truly was. We had just one of the most beautiful outdoor picnic lunches we have ever had, I want to say. Like it was gorgeous forest. There is camping there, which I hadn't even considered, and it looked like fantastic camping. It's right alongside the Green River, and there
Okay.
are above ground hiking trails in the national park there too, and I would love to go back and spend more time in both places, above and
Yeah.
underground, because it just was absolutely beautiful. And then they have a stellar visitor center. Their visitor
Okay.
center is excellent, and we spent quite a bit of time in there learning about the history of the caves, which that part wasn't as much on our tour. There was like a hint of it on our tour from the ranger, but we were really talking at that point inside the cave about cave formation and what we were seeing and things like that. What's interesting about this national park is it was on someone's land, privately owned, and they discovered the cave. And then they realized it kept going. And that's why it's called Mammoth Cave, is because it is, and they can't say it's the largest because we don't know, but it's the largest known cave system in the
Okay.
world. And that's where it gets its name. And so for a time, it was a privately run, come and see these caves. It wasn't a state or national park. It wasn't government run. And eventually it was sold to the national park system and has become what it is now. But there were parts of the cave that were under different people's land, not that original owner. And so there was like lots of negotiating. And I think there might even be parts of the caves that are still not owned by the national park system. So it was just really interesting to learn about the history. And then there's lots of great books about caves. And we got some cool books that were educational, but we also got some books that were just sort of fun stories about kids exploring caves. And I think really good for my son to see himself as an explorer and an adventurer. And then we headed off on the tour, and it was a really fun time inside the cave and exploring. And it was sweet because, as I mentioned, I really like caves. Maybe I should share a little bit about why I like caves so that people don't think
Sure.
I'm a weirdo. So I grew up on the coast of Northern California, and there's a lot of interesting cave systems that are along the shore there at the beach, because the beach in Northern California is not like just a sandy beach. There's cliffs and there's redwoods. And so growing up, we would explore caves. That was kind of like how we would go off and quote unquote get into some mischief as a kid, as we would go and explore these caves. And there was like an element of danger because
Sure.
they were only
You could die at
accessible when
any
the
point.
tide was low.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if you
Yeah.
were in there when the tide was high, you were going to get stuck in there.
Mhm.
And but also when I was older, we would like row boats into the caves even when the tide was up and like explore them from our kayaks. And redwood trees also, when they get struck by lightning, they they hollow out. They stay. The outer part is like a cast that stays, and they create little caves themselves. And so as a child, I always was like playing in caves. It was like a part of my childhood. But my senior year in high school, I took the freshman level geology class with my best friend. We hadn't bothered to take it as freshmen. So we took it our senior year, and I found out I love geology. Like, I am fascinated by earthquakes, and I lived in earthquake country, so it kind of makes sense that I like wanted to understand that. I am like a weird nerd for volcanoes. I just find them fascinating. And through that class, I learned I was also really interested in caves and how they're formed, because there's different formations of caves. And our geology teacher at the end of the year would take the 10 students with the highest grades to Lassen National Park, which is in northeastern California. And being one of two seniors in the whole class, the two seniors, we had the highest grades in the class. Our other best friend was also the TA. We did not cheat. We did not cheat. It
It was
probably
fair.
looked like we did. It was all fair, but we had the highest grades, so we got to go on this trip, and it was so much fun. We drove, it was probably about 5 hours from where we lived, maybe a little bit more, and we camped at the national park, and it was like just such a cool experience as a young woman on the precipice of graduation, like, going camping without anyone in my family, shared a tent with my best friend. We, like, went shopping and picked out all this food that we never got to eat. I remember we were, like, so excited about the food we brought, and during the day, we were allowed to just go explore the caves, which sounds wild to me in 2025,
Yes.
but I'm gonna date myself here, but in 2000, it felt very normal, and we would just spend the whole day, like, down in the caves. We brought wintergreen lifesavers.
Oh,
Do
'cause
you
they'll
know
glow.
about winter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we brought wintergreen lifesavers, and we just, like, went down in these caves at Lassen National Park are lava tubes. So they're
Okay.
made from the lava flows from the eruptions of Lassen, and So they're very different than the caves that I had been exploring as a child, and they're very different than the caves that I'm talking about at Mammoth. And we just had the best time. And in the evenings, there are these things called buttes that are all over the rim of the volcano, and we would hike up to the buttes, and you could see almost like you could see so far, and it just was so beautiful. And I think it's one of the first experiences that I had that like really connected me deeply with nature. And I will never forget when my husband and I started dating. We wanted to go camping because we both loved camping and we'd never been together. And he's like, "Where do you want to go camping?" And I was like, "I want to go to the Oregon Caves National Monument." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, Nobody, I want to go there. Nobody will go with me." And he took me camping to the Oregon Caves National Monument. And we went on tours and he was like, "Oh my, she is a different kind of nerd than I realized." I knew some of her nerdiness, but like I kind of hide my cave nerdiness, my geology nerdiness in general. I keep it like kind of secret now. It's not. But
No, it's
yeah,
not. All 12
so
of our
I
listeners know.
but so Mammoth Cave has been on my bucket list for a really long time. I just had not ever seen a way to fit it in, and then I did.
So do you recall if there was RV camping or just tent camping?
So I don't recall specifically, but what I think is likely true, and I can maybe try to verify this as I'm talking about it. What I think is likely true, just in general at the national parks, and I grew up right outside a national park. And so that's where I'm kind of thinking I have this knowledge from, is most of the national parks don't allow RVs,
That's what I was thinking.
or they do allow RVs, but they don't have hookup.
Sure.
So, yeah, like I'm looking at one of their campsites and it's hookups 0, but I think you can bring an RV in. You're just not gonna it's gonna be like your RV is your tent,
Sure. Sure.
is how that's gonna feel. Because that was true in Smoky Mountains National Park, where we went last summer, and I know it's true in Redwood National Park, where I grew up. So I think that's just maybe like a general thing to be aware of with national parks if you're looking to do RV camping, is that you probably can, you can't hook it up to anything. I know that there is a Jellystone park
Mhm.
nearby.
Yeah.
It's Jellystone Park, Mammoth Cave, and I would be surprised if there wasn't a KOA nearby. There's probably a KOA nearby.
Sure.
So I think if you're looking for, and I think it makes sense. I used to not feel this way exactly. But after my experience at Smoky Mountain National Park last summer, where we went camping and it was very primitive, I think it makes sense to not stay necessarily inside the park and instead stay somewhere where you're going to be comfortable and get good rest so that you can
Mhm.
enjoy, unless you are already a family who does this on the regular and camps
Sure.
in does primitive camping like all the time, and you have a system for that, and everyone knows what that looks and feels like, and those are everyone's expectations, then I think it's fine. But if it's not something you do regularly, or if you do camp in an RV, I think it's best to just find one of those places that's going to be comfortable for you so that you can really sink in and enjoy everything that's happening at the national park when you're there.
So cost-wise, are you just paying the fee to pull in and park, or is there an additional cost to actually go and do the tour in the cave?
So this is one of those places where if you have the federal park pass, you're going to be able to park for free. And then you can show up day of and buy tickets for the tours, and they do have a cost to them. But I recommend reserving them ahead of time because they can fill up. And it would just be, like I said, it's sort of not near anything. So it would
Yeah.
be like rough to drive from wherever you're staying and get there and find out the tour we wanted to do is completely full. So I recommend booking in advance. And let's see, they are, as of today, and we know that like prices can change at national parks, but as of recording this in late 2025, the youth tickets for ages 6 to 12 are $22. Adult tickets are $26, and child tickets for ages 3 to 5 are $7. And that is for the Frozen Niagara tour, and different tours might have different prices, but that's The way that you reserve those tickets is on a site called recreation.gov. It's the same site if you've ever booked campsites through on federal lands, it's the same site that you would use for that.
And I'm assuming, but I wanna verify, you have to book a tour if you want to go into the cave. You can't just go exploring the cave by yourself.
So there's several tours. There is one self-guided tour. So I'm just going to read what they say. Many people ask, may we visit the cave without a guided tour? The answer is yes. The self-guided tour ventures through large open passageways with points of interest along the route, and participants can explore at their own pace. Rangers are stationed along the way to answer questions. This tour is ideal for those who want to move at their own pace or are looking for a cave experience without much time commitment. The tour is the self-guided version of the Mammoth Passage tour, and that is about 3/4 of a mile walking. And they say it's an easy walk.
Okay.
So there is one you can do on your own, but then all of the other place, like that's the only place you can explore on your own. You can't just go
Sure.
exploring the whole cave system on your own.
Sure.
And the Mammoth Passage tour, which is what has that space, is an introductory tour into the historic entrance. So that's where they first discovered the cave. And this section houses many great artifacts left behind by explorers. This tour is ideal for those who don't like tight spaces, have small children, or anyone looking for a tour with limited steps. This
I
tour
feel
is
like I like that one.
yeah. And that's the guided version of that same self-guided space.
Okay.
The guided
Okay.
version obviously it's about an hour and a half because you're doing all those other parts where they're like
Sure.
talking with you. But the self-guided would be at your own pace.
Which it kinda feels like that might be good for me.
Yeah,
So I could be like,
absolutely.
"Yep, and I'm done now."
Well, and it does still look like they're recommending that you would get reservations, so I wonder if they have, like, a cap of how many
Probably.
people they allow in, but it is a much different rate for that self-guided. So the self-guided tour, the 6 to 12 age range is $9 a ticket, adults are $12 a ticket, and
Okay.
children ages 3 to 5 are $3 a ticket
Okay. A little more
for that
budget friendly?
self-guided. Yes, and like I said, there's above ground hikes, and those, of course, are just included with your visit to the national park.
Sure.
And there you know what? Okay. So whether or not there's a parking fee, I am going to say I don't know because I was expecting to need to use our park pass and we did not need it that day. And I don't know why. So I don't want to say there's no parking fee, but I'm trying to. Oh, here we go. Entry to Mammoth Cave National Park and its surface features is free of charge.
Lovely. Okay.
So you go there, park, have your lunch, hike, check out the beautiful views of the Green River, and never go in a cave and you wouldn't pay a dime.
That's awesome. I think that if you lived close, that would be really fun to do. Like, that would be a great nature spot to go. Just, bring a Frisbee or you
Yeah.
know, baseball or whatever, throw the ball around, have a picnic. That's awesome.
And it was absolutely gorgeous above ground. Like I said, I hadn't even thought about what a above ground might look like. And it was absolutely gorgeous. We went in early fall, so the leaves were starting to change. And yeah, it was a beautiful national park. Whoever thought it was boring, just either, I don't know how, and it's not just one person. There were several reviews. They either just it's not their thing, caves aren't
Yeah.
their thing, I guess, or they had expectations that were different than what the park could meet, or they just weren't ready to take in just how beautiful it was right
Well,
there. I
and
mean, I
we have
say
talked before about how expectations can negatively they can totally change what an experience could be. And if you went in with expectations that it was going to be this fast-paced, stimulating, like fun-filled thing, or if you went into it like me, apprehensive about caves, I would like to think I would go into it with a little bit more of an open mind, but I would go into it with a little anxiousness because caves aren't my thing. And so I think
yeah.
that can definitely alter your experience.
But I think it's good to know, like, so many national parks, not that a national park you're going for one specific thing, but in this case, it could feel like you're going just for the caves, but actually you're going for the hikes, the views of the Green River, the forest, the nature that's all around it too. And I
Right.
think if you go into it with that perspective that even if someone in your group is not going to like the cave part, they might like a hike above ground. So
Yeah.
there really might be something for everyone at this national park. And their educational materials that they had both for free and for purchase were excellent. Like we are still using them in our homeschool to talk about caves and to imagine explorations, and that's over a year later.
Do they have educational programming specifically or, like field trips and stuff like that? Or is it strictly just you can come if you wanna bring a group, you all book the same tour at the same time?
Yeah, you can book a group tour so
Okay.
that, like, you have a whole tour to yourself, but it's not specifically, like, for a
Field
field
trippy.
trip or for, like, a homeschool group. It's just, like, you could do it as, like, a family reunion, and it would be the same process as it would be for your homeschool group. But, yeah,
Yeah.
you can book a group tour through, one of the caves, and they do programs, like, ranger-led programs that when you get there, you look at the schedule and you can see what's being hosted that day or that weekend that you're there, but it's kinda different in different seasons and based on what they are planning to present, not necessarily like a program that you would look at in advance and book.
Well, before I ask you about your win, you said earlier this was a bucket list trip for you. Did it measure up?
Goodness, it was better
Okay.
than I thought, and I think it's 2 things, and I'll save one of them for when you ask me about my win, but one part of it is just being amazed at how beautiful it was above ground and how well done their visitor center is and how much potential there is to go back and explore. Like, we went and did 1 cave, there's so many more.
That's amazing. Okay. So, what was your win from your trip to Mammoth Cave?
My win was finding out that my son loves caves too. I had no
Yay.
idea. Yay. I had no idea. I mean, he might have gotten inside there and been like, "I don't like this one bit.
Yeah.
Get me out of here." I had no idea what to expect, and I didn't really prime him, but he loved it. He loved the whole thing. He was so engaged. He was asking questions. I mean, he was asking questions of the ranger, but he was also asking questions of me. And it just was this like, I can see this being something we do together
Yeah.
for a long time. And like I said, we have continued to talk about it. It's so far the only cave adventure he's ever been in. He's been in another cave on a hike that we went on, but he's never been intentionally gone somewhere to talk about and learn about caves. And yet we are still talking about that experience and learning about it and exploring it in our homeschool. And that to me, when you have an experience that lasts and that you can keep bringing up in your homeschool, especially when I think about he was 4 when we did that, and now
Yeah.
he's 5.5, almost 6, and we're still talking about that one experience and still using it as a launch pad to learn more things. To me, that feels like such a big win because if you're gonna go do a big trip, you want it to have hints.
Yeah.
That was a tiring trip. We got home and my husband kinda looked at me like, "Could we think through these a little bit more?" And I was like, "No, we can't." But I'm tired too. I hear what you're saying. This isn't gonna change. She's not gonna change, but I'm tired too, so it's
That's
good to know that it
hysterical.
was worth it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you have
Yeah.
inspired me. I think I need to start small. Like maybe we go to Ruby Falls because it's close to home.
Yes.
I think my husband's done it before. I'm sure, again, I did it when I was a kid. But my mom is also similar to me, not a fan of the enclosed spaces like that. So, but maybe we start small and see because truly, I think it's a gamble with my kids. Would
Yeah,
they love it? Would they hate it? I don't know, but it feels low risk to try it out at Ruby Falls. So stay
yeah.
tuned. Maybe I report back.
And I didn't know until we moved in 12 years ago to the Southeast, I didn't know how many cool cave experiences there are.
Yeah.
If you can't get to Mammoth Caves, there's a ton of really cool cave experiences in Tennessee. There's one where they like bring bands in underground and have like concerts in the caves.
Wow.
There's caves kind of near Smoky Mountain National Park. There's caves in Alabama. So, yeah, I think there's smaller, lower risk cave excursions and experiences throughout the Southeast if Mammoth Caves does not feel like the right fit for you or the place to start. And just for perspective's sake for people who are living in the Southeast and thinking about getting to Mammoth Caves, it's probably about a 5 or 6 hour drive from Atlanta.
It's not
So
awful.
it's super accessible, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Once you get into like 7, 8 hours, that's when I'm like, we got to pause and think about that. But
Yeah.
6 hours, we can do that.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Well, Kat, where can they find you?
You can find me at Recreating Camp on Instagram and Facebook. And Kayla, where can they find you?
You can find me at scratchmadesimple _ on Instagram and at scratchmadesimple on TikTok. And you can find us on all the socials at Homeschooling Down South. And if you've visited a super fun cave or any other super fun place that we should know about, please email us at hello@homeschoolingdownsouth.com. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would share it with a friend who needs to go to Mammoth Cave National Park and get over their cave fears, or leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
And we'll love together, we'll learn together, explore this whole wide world together. No matter where we are, I have you, you have me, and today that's all.